we have underwater burlesque shows on Friday and Saturday nights, and then on Sunday we have an all-ages mermaid show.
From the other side of the glass, Whitney Fair's life might look like it's all mermaid tails, twirling, and wait, is she swimming in stilettos?
It's okay, take a second.
But on dry land, she isn't some mythical creature. She's a very real Floridian with a very real problem.
It just felt like such a violation.
She's suing the cops because Sheriff's Office records say a lieutenant searched her and other underwater performers in a state-run database. And if you have a Florida driver's license, your personal info is in there too.
You can find out a tremendous amount of info about anybody that's in that system, and everybody is in that system.
State data shows it's been misused by government workers nearly 1,000 times since 2015, and that misuse went up last year. Let's see what's brewing. Hey, I'm Jenna Bourne, and I'm an investigative reporter at 10 Tampa Bay. If you're new here, welcome to our caffeine-fueled deep dive into issues that matter to you. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode.
Underwater, there's this freedom in swimming, and we bring a lot of smiles to people's faces.
But there weren't always smiles behind the scenes at the Rec Bar in Fort Lauderdale. The underwater performers had a falling out.
So shortly after this falling out, the swimmer was let go. Her husband works with law enforcement, and I started to see personal, private information of mine talked about publicly on social media.
An internal investigation at the Broward County Sheriff's Office found that Lieutenant Jeffrey Mellies searched Whitney Fair and his wife's other former co-workers' names in a state-run database. Under purpose code, it says criminal investigation, even though a sheriff's office record says none of the women were under investigation. That database is called DAVID. It stands for Driver and Vehicle Information Database. It's meant to be a tool for government agencies, including law enforcement, to confirm information about Florida drivers. Sound familiar? We told you about it in 2020. Here's 2020 Jenna explaining it. DAVID gives users access to every Florida driver's license number, address, signature, medical and disability information, social security number, date of birth, vehicle information, and emergency contact info. Thanks, Jenna, from 2 years ago. Back then, we told you agencies reported more than 900 times since 2015 that their employees misused their access to DAVID, using it as an investigative shortcut or for personal reasons. Everything from looking up addresses for Christmas cards to tracking an ex-girlfriend and setting fire to her and her friend's property. Our story led to changes in state law, but despite all the attention we brought to DAVID misuse, we found that government workers are still abusing their access to your sensitive personal information. In fact, it got even worse last year. We crunched state data and found agencies reported to the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles that they caught their employees misusing DAVID 116 times in 2019, 137 times in 2020, and 152 times in 2021. There have already been 61 reports in 2022.
It continues to rise because they get away with it time and time again.
After seeing our story in 2020, State Senator Ed Hooper introduced a bill that became law last year to help prevent people from misusing state databases like DAVID in two ways. First, by quadrupling fines for government workers who misuse electronic databases. Second, by requiring officers to get more training on how to use those databases appropriately. We checked, and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, FDLE, did add that training. But earlier this year, the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office said one of its deputies looked up women on DAVID for no legitimate reason 5 times, including the very next day after he completed DAVID usage training through FDLE. The Sheriff's Office says one of the women Deputy Scott Kelly looked up said they exchanged explicit photos. Another told the agency he tried to get her to meet up for sex while he was working. Sheriff's Office records also say Deputy Kelly had women's info from DAVID saved on his personal cell phone. The Sheriff's Office says it discovered Kelly's DAVID misuse after a mom reported he sent an explicit photo to her teen daughter, who he met on the job.
When a public official utilizes his badge and his uniform to gain personal benefit, it not only reflects on the law enforcement profession, but it deeply impacts the men and women who wear the uniform every day and do the job the right way.
The sheriff's office says Kelly submitted this handwritten resignation after his arrest. He was criminally charged with violating public records law, which we reported in 2020 is rare. But all 5 of those charges were dropped. The sheriff's office tells us after review by the state, elements of Kelly's misuse of David have been determined to be more appropriate for possible civil action. Kelly entered a plea of not guilty on a transmission of harmful material to a minor charge. His lawyer told us he did not want to be interviewed for this story.
State your full name and the agency you represent.
It's now up to the Criminal Justice Standards and Training Commission to decide if Kelly will lose his state certification that allows him to be a sworn officer in Florida.
Case number 47021.
Since 2015, law enforcement agencies have referred 144 officers to the commission for potential discipline on their certifications for David misuse. Only 15 of those officers' certifications, 10%, rose to the level of being disciplined by the commission. Another 7 officers gave up their certifications voluntarily. Commission staff found the other 122 cases don't have evidence to prove bad intent, or what they call a moral character violation.
How would you explain this to somebody who sees these numbers and is like, whoa, wait a minute, 10%? That doesn't seem like enough.
I would remind people that the process of CJSTC, only the most extreme cases go before the Criminal Justice Standards and Training Commission. Again, employers have the ability and to discipline their employees, and they do. So these are only the most extreme cases, only involving law enforcement certifications.
Okay, so that is what we've uncovered on David misuse since the last time we told you about it in 2020. And we brought all these updates to Senator Hooper, who pushed for changes to state law last time.
Like a lot of the bills that we pass, once they're passed, we move on. Somebody formulates some rules and adopts those rules, and off they go, and we hope it works as intended. Obviously, it is not.
As he runs for re-election, he says he plans to revisit this issue.
I plan to get with the Senate General Counsel and come up with a plan to at least be able to gather and speak to either the agency heads, the commission representatives, and let's find out where are we coming up short.
Something needs to happen, not just a slap on the wrist, because then it continues to rise. This is going to be an ongoing problem.
Broward County Sheriff's Office records show it suspended Lieutenant Mellies for 5 days without pay for David misuse and other policy violations. The Sheriff's Office sent his case to the state commission we told you about before and forwarded it to the state attorney's office for possible criminal charges. Lieutenant Mellies hasn't been charged and is still working for the sheriff's office. FAIR's lawsuit against Lieutenant Mellies and the sheriff says, in part, it was common knowledge that violations and suspected violations of the David system would not be routinely investigated and that any violation would not receive a significant sanction. Lieutenant Mellies' attorney told us he did not want to be interviewed for this story, and the sheriff's office told us it doesn't typically comment on pending lawsuits.
This could happen to anyone. I would have never thought this would happen to me.
Thanks for watching What's Brewing. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and I'll see you next time.